Welcome back to Ag Marketing IQ In Depth. Today we're talking to Brian Grete, who recently joined Commstock Investments, a longtime partner of Farm Futures. Welcome to the team, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pam. Glad to be here and love to talk markets and everything else with you here.
Absolutely. You're here on a day that's a little better for marketers to show up. We're seeing some improvements in basis. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a unique situation. Typically, when you would have a record corn crop coming and a near record soybean crop coming, you wouldn't see basis improve during harvest. And while we haven't seen just incredible improvement in basis, we have seen some of that across the countryside, especially in the eastern corn belt and down through the mid and lower Mississippi River areas. And so I think that that's important. It tells us that, one, the supply isn't what it was thought to be or needs to be to meet near-term demand reasons or demand commitments. And the reason for that, who cares if it's whether the yield isn't as big as anticipated or the farmer's putting more in the bin and not selling as much off the combine, whatever the reason, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is that the supply isn't enough to meet the near-term commitments, and that's why the basis levels are rising, whether it's exporters, other commercials, elevators, ethanol plants, you name it. If they need supply, they'll raise basis.
That's fabulous. I was thinking this morning, so Kyle Stackhouse, a farmer in Indiana, writes for us, and he said he's getting that corn off the farm as quick as he can while the getting's good. I was thinking, we say you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm thinking, no, we get on that puppy and ride it. Sell all you can while you can. As long as you're above break even, let's get the money, flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you do see basis improve and you want to take advantage of that, because keep in mind, while the government is shut, we still have futures trading every day. We still have a cash market every day. And so you'll have a change in basis there. But if you do see that basis improve, there's an opportunity where it's telling you, hey, my near-term market needs a little bit more supply. They're willing to pay me X number of cents more than they were yesterday to get that supply. So maybe you do move it off the combine and then look at reownership opportunities for the future if the market would happen to rise as we get maybe some of the demand back, especially from China on soybeans. I know that that's a big one right now, but there may be some opportunities there for some reownership and to build a better price as we move forward.
And then, so when we look at that, sometimes we hold out, we think, maybe it's going to get a little better. So you're looking at reownership to help with that. But the other thing is there's some outlooks for 2026 that don't look like we're going to see great numbers then either.
Absolutely. And I think that all comes into play. And so, there might be some cash flow issues for some farmers as well. And so, if you need money for cash flow near term, if your basis levels are rising, move some grain and then look to reown that to, like I said, build a better price potentially down the road. And the other thing is, like you said, 2026 looks like another lean year for farming. And so unless there's something fundamental that changes, and it would probably take a short crop either in South America or here in the United States for the 2026 growing season, we need to build prices, and you're going to have to find your opportunities, take your opportunities, and build prices little pieces at a time instead of looking for major home runs. Now, I know that the broad thinking is, hey, I'm going to throw everything in the bin and prices are going to get better down the road. Well, kind of there's hope there that happens, but hope isn't really a marketing plan. I think the other thing you have to consider is that if you're putting grain in the bin aggressively, pretty much everybody else is as well. And so there will be a lot more bushels moving if we do get any kind of a uptick in the marketplace.
Sure. And we're also looking at that cost of storage and how much storage you have. So maybe it's a bit of a balancing act.
Absolutely. And we've heard some of the storage issues, that's been talked about for weeks now. And in some areas, we're not going to run out of storage. There's plenty of storage to store the corn and soybean crops across the countryside. That isn't the issue. The issue is some localized and on individual farms and things like that we will run into storage issues. And so I think that that's an important factor to keep in mind as we hear some of that narrative out there. It's really easy for people to just say, oh, we're going to run out of storage. Well, that isn't the true story. That isn't the full in-depth look at what the situation is.
No, it never is. And it's always different for every farm.
Absolutely. And that's one thing to keep in mind as you look at things and look at the marketplace. Is this the right move for my farming operation? Do I need the money for cash flow purposes? Am I taking advantage of a basis move that would support my farming operation? Make your decisions based on your farming operation.
Absolutely. I talked to some young farmers who stepped out and bagged their grain last year. They're bagging it again this year. They've got storage, but that above the bins, they're putting in bags. When I first talked to them, I thought, man, my heart just sunk. And it turned out they made money last year doing it, but they had the courage to step out and do what they believed was right for their farm.
Absolutely. And that is one thing that you got to kind of think outside the box, and kind of a cliche that I just almost bristle at, but you do have to think outside the box and think of creative ways of how is this going to impact my farming operation, either positively or negatively, and weigh those as you make your decisions.
Yeah. And as you're looking at that, I was thinking, we could say outside the bin. That gives a little twist on outside the box.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at what's going on, part of it now is the data situation, looking at federal data not being available for helping to make these decisions. The futures market is still open. Folks are still buying grain, but we've got some difficulties here. We were just talking about some difficulties with transportation issues as a result of this. You want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so water levels along the mid to lower Mississippi River are really low and potentially getting critically low. So that all hits at the same time that we're trying to harvest our crops and send them down the river. And there's all kinds of different factors that come into play. Now, if we do get below those critical levels on the Mississippi, we'll see tows restricted. We'll also see hours of operation restricted. And all that does is it makes it more difficult to get the grain from where we produce it, primarily in the Corn Belt, down to the Gulf of Mexico where we export it. Now, we all know that China isn't buying any U.S. soybeans at the moment, but the export pace to date, and the last data that we have is as of September 18th, before the government shut down, the accumulated soybean exports were still above year ago at that point in time. It's the bookings that China doesn't have anything on the books moving forward that is really lacking. On the corn side of things, export demand is strong, and I think we're probably going to see more corn shipped out than soybeans during this traditional soybean shipping period that starts in September and goes to about January. So we'll kind of flip our seasons a little bit. Typically, we move more soybeans up front, and then corn comes after that season is done. And I think we're probably going to move more corn near term here and less soybeans, just because of the lack of Chinese demand.
That makes sense. Well, we thank you for being with us today. And I think what we're looking at here is same thing we look at every day, right? Other things slow down, other people take a break, farmers just keep going. They're not just resilient, they're flexible.
Absolutely. And that's important, that the farmer keeps going. And I know that we're waiting on the farmer aid details to come from the Trump administration and all that, but the farmer has to go day after day.
Yeah, and work the markets, which is what we'd rather be working anyway.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Brian.
You betcha.